Without question, the worst mistake that Niantic made this year when it comes to Pokemon Go is nerfing remote raids. Now, it's been several months since Niantic made this controversial change, and now I want to give a retrospective on what effect this change had on the Pokemon Go community, as well as Pokemon Go as a whole. Alright, so with that said, let's get right into it. Alright, how's it going everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula. I hope you're having a good day, and welcome to today's Pokemon Go discussion video. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about remote raid passes once again. I really do think that when it comes to the year 2023, this is going to be the one thing that's going to define this year, the fact that Niantic nerfed remote raid passes. This was probably one of the most controversial changes Niantic has ever made when it comes to Pokemon Go, and its effects are still being felt to this day. So for those of you who are unaware, basically what happened was that earlier on this year, Niantic did a complete nerf to remote raiding. What they did is that they doubled the prices of remote raid passes, and they made it so you could only do 5 per day. This was a change that nobody asked for obvious reasons. And I really feel like because Niantic was so focused on their core philosophies of Pokemon Go being a community-based game, that it was a detriment to the Pokemon Go community. Ever since it was introduced during the pandemic, a lot of players have been utilizing these raid passes in order to do a lot of raids while sitting at home. And I think it was a great system. It solved a lot of different issues with Pokemon Go, especially when it comes to rural gameplay, and for Niantic to nerf it to the ground like they did, a lot of people were really upset about this change. There were definitely players out there who supported the change, but they were very far and few between. When it came to the general player base, they completely relied on this item to enjoy Pokemon Go. And for Niantic to essentially ruin them by making them double the price and limiting how many you could do per day, I think a lot of players were frustrated with Pokemon Go to the point where they all quit, and that was probably one of the most negative things about this change. It created a vast divide within the Pokemon Go community, and a lot of players just outright quit, and it was really depressing to see. A lot of my friends who were longtime players just simply stopped playing the game. They felt like it was not worth it anymore, like going out and having to do in-person raids again. Like, this was something that they saw as outdated gameplay, and I totally agree with them. I think doing a whole bunch of in-person raiding, that was not something that a lot of players were interested in doing in the current landscape, and I really feel like instead of adapting to that, Niantic chose to try to brute force everyone to go back to the archaic times. And I can understand why. Like, the original vision for Pokemon Go was that it was meant to be an outdoor game that was based a lot around community, and I tend to agree with them. Like, there was a lot of times where I had the most fun playing Pokemon Go within a community. Some of that was with raids. But I really feel like instead of nerfing remote raiding, I really feel like what they should have done was add a bunch of gameplay that actually encourages that community-based play. Like, they already had the backbones for a lot of that, like community days, Pokemon Go Fest, Go Tour event. Rather than adding a whole bunch of elements like that, what they instead did was ruin something that a lot of players were enjoying. I think 2023 is going to go down as a bad year for Pokemon Go, and that's a real shame because I actually think this year was a very strong year for this game. We had a really good slate of Community Day Pokemon, we've had a lot of really awesome shiny releases, and some of the live events that we had like Pokemon Go Fest and the Go Tour event were actually really good, and they created a lot of buzz within the Pokemon Go community. But yeah, for Niantic to sour all of that with this remote raid pass nerf, that's really disappointing and incredibly frustrating. I really feel like ultimately what this comes down to is that Niantic is not necessarily in tune with their own community. What they really care about is their own vision over the experiences of the common player. And I think because of that, a lot of players just simply do not like this game anymore. Now, I already see it in the comments. Why do you bother playing this game if you don't enjoy it enough? Like, if you have such an animosity towards Pokemon Go, why are you choosing to still play? Well, for myself personally, I still enjoy the game, don't get me wrong. Like, yes, I was very unhappy about the remote raid pass nerf, but ultimately I still have a lot of reasons why I'm playing Pokemon Go, and most of that is not even because of raiding. Really, I'm just speaking for a lot of players who really enjoyed remote raiding and found it to be their main form of gameplay, and for them to basically have their gameplay killed off because Niantic wants to enforce this sense of community, I think that was a really bad move, in my opinion. So what does this mean for Pokemon GO's future? Well, first of all, we gotta talk about revenue. I think ever since Niantic nerfed remote raids, they've definitely taken a major hit to their revenue, and it's very apparent. Like, the fact that they had such a major layoff of their staff earlier on this year is just evidence that this change was not something that was very positive for the company itself. I really think when it comes to Niantic, they really need to take a step back and think about whether or not their core philosophies behind Pokemon Go are as important as what players are demanding and what they are wanting. Yes, you don't necessarily have to listen to the player base every single time, but at the same time, I do think it's very good to listen to the community because they're the ones telling you what they want to see with Pokemon Go and what would make it a better experience. I think for Niantic to completely ignore that in order to fulfill their own philosophies, that's not going to be healthy for the game's longevity. I think ultimately what they need to do is, yeah, stick to their vision, but in a way where it's going to make a lot more players happy. That's going to be up to them to figure that out, but I think nerfing remote raids was not the right move. But yeah, like I said earlier, I think they just need to meet us in the middle, at the very least. Like, if they want to keep the remote raid pass nerfs, then at the very least they need to ease off a lot of the restrictions that they placed, like reduce the cost of remote raid passes first and foremost. Like, the fact that they're double the cost is abhorrent. I recognize that they're going to be a lot more valuable compared to regular premium raid passes, but having them double the cost is something that I think a lot of players were completely taken aback by. Like, I can expect maybe like a 25% increase or maybe even a 50% increase. Like, if every single remote raid pass was 150 coins instead of 100 coins, I could totally understand that, and I would actually be okay with that, you know? But the fact that they're almost 195 coins each, that's crazy, in my opinion. Like, it's ridiculous that Niantic is placing these restrictions, especially because when it comes to these legendaries, some of them you need to do a ton of in order to get the amount of XL candies and the IVs that you need in order for them to actually be useful. Like, for example, I think a lot of players use legendaries in PvP, specifically the Master League, but getting a full team of Master League ready Pokemon is going to require an insane amount of rating. And I think Niantic is not necessarily aware of that. I think what's going on is that they believe that a majority of players only care about collecting a legendary once, and they don't necessarily care about duplicates or getting high IVs or getting maxed out candies. I don't know, but it just seems like Niantic is out of touch, and I think this is something that needs to change in 2024. And another thing that they need to realize is that the original remote raids was very helpful for rural players. And once again, they completely killed rural Pokemon Go with these changes. I talked to a lot of people who play in rural areas, and some of them have gone back to spoofing. And it's because they can't enjoy the game otherwise, and I think that's completely on Niantic. One of the ways that remote raids have helped Pokemon Go is that it encouraged players to not spoof, and I think that's something that has been lost ever since this remote raid pass nerf. So yeah, what are my closing thoughts regarding all this? I just think it's very unfortunate that this nerf happened, but we've all kind of had to live with it at this point. I think Niantic is very much not going to make a lot of positive changes to remote raids. I think they're pretty much doubling down on the changes that they made. And that's really unfortunate because I really feel like the remote raid pass nerf was one of the worst things to happen to Pokemon Go. And I really do hope that in 2024, they can make it up to us with some positive changes, especially when it comes to raids. Like, I really do think they have the potential to make up for the mistakes that they made. And I do think that when it comes to the Pokemon Go community, they're really hungry for some of those positive changes. So we'll just have to wait and see what Niantic ends up doing, but I really do hope they decide to go the way of listening to player feedback. But in any case, yeah, that's going to be it for this video. I just wanted to do one final discussion video regarding this topic. I really do think this topic is going to persist. I do think that in 2024, a lot of players are still going to talk about it. And I really do hope Niantic is fully aware of that. I really do hope they make some positive changes to get a lot of players' minds off of the remote raid pass nerf. Maybe they could meet us in the middle like I'm suggesting, but I really do not know what it'll be. I just really hope Niantic makes those positive changes. But yeah, that's going to be it. I would love to know your thoughts down below, so make sure you leave your comments, and yeah, let's have a great discussion because this is a very hot topic and it's been that way for the last several months. And thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. If you found it to be insightful in any way, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. Now I want to give a quick shout out to all my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support my channel in any way, big or small, then make sure you go and check out the links in the description below. For all my patrons, they get a permanent spot on my in-game friends list. So if you want to interact with me in some way within Pokemon Go, like with remote raids or the friendship system, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon. Also, if you want to support my channel without spending any money, you could always do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula, and I'm on these following platforms. Alright, and that's going to be it. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.